Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Mindy and the Mic from Stigma to Connection. Guys, I'm excited for this episode. One, because I'm with my friend Teagan. Teagan and I actually talk about how we met in the interview. So you'll get a picture about how we know each other. And also it's just good to interview a good friend. I think there's something really cool about this interview just because I know that America definitely pushes the 40 hours a week plus 9 to 5 grind. And it's good to hear from someone about what it looks like to take a step back and when to recognize burnout and when to recognize that, hey, sometimes you don't need to keep going if you're burnt out and tired. You need to rest. And so Teagan does a great job of explaining that and articulating her story too. I love how she talks about her non-traditional job and how that impacts her marriage, and she gives insight about how she and her husband can come together for quality time. So I hope you enjoyed this episode.
I'm Mindy, and I have a microphone. So this must be Mindy and the Mic from Stigma to Connection, the type of conversation.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Mindy and the Mic from Stigma to Connection. And today I'm with my good friend Teagan. Teagan, how are you?
I'm good. I am so thankful that the weather is nicer today. I've been on a couple walks and it's just spring is hopefully springing, so it's good.
I know, because we both live in Nebraska, where one
Yes.
week is like 30 and snowy and blizzardy, and the next
Yes.
week it's like 70, almost like 75.
I know. Crazy.
So you're like, what is going on?
Yes.
I wanted to ask Teagan to be on my podcast because me and Teagan met in a very unique way. I actually went on an internship after my undergrad from Iowa State, and I went to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln to kind of be an intern there for one of the nonprofit ministries. And my job was basically to go meet students and to become friends with them and to invite them to the club or to invite them to the organization that I was working for. And Teagan was already in the club, or not the club. Teagan was already in the organization, and she was just so friendly and so sweet. And me being new on campus, I was like, I need friends. I need to get to know someone, because even though I was an intern, I was like only 1 year out of college, like 22, 23, and I was like, I need friends. So I remember going up to Teagan, I was like, hey, do you want to like go get like Chipotle, or I don't even know where we went out to eat. Do you?
I think it was Chipotle the first time.
Okay. I was like, hey, so like, do you want to go out to Chipotle? Because I want to like get to know you more. But in reality, I was like, I just need friends. I just need friends. I don't want to be lonely anymore. Because going to a new place and to a new city out of college is just, it's a whole new can of worms. And there's a lot of things in college they don't really prepare you for. And one of them is, how do you make friends outside of college?
Exactly.
So then I went up to Teagan and I was like, let's be friends. And then by her kind heart, she was like, Mindy, I will be your friend.
100%.
Yeah. And so I wanted to ask her to be on the podcast because Teagan is actually doing that same internship that I did. And I just wanted to ask her experience because it's kind of like deja vu. And she was so happy to be on the podcast. So thank you so much, Teagan, for being on.
Yes, absolutely. It's an honor to be here and just to be friends with you. It's so great. And I love that we can like reconnect just after time has gone. And it's just really fun. So I'm really thankful for you.
Yeah. So Teagan, I have a question. What made you want to do that internship or working for that nonprofit?
Yeah, great question. So right out of college, I graduated with a degree in psychology. Right out of college, I went to the Med Center to do research at in Omaha, and so I did that for a year. I moved to a new city because my then fiance, but now husband, we were getting married, and so I worked a different job as a dental assistant. And then, kind of right after we got married in December, I just was like, Lord, I really don't know what you want to do with my life. Like, you've taken me through research and we've gone to dental assisting, and it's felt kind of random, but I knew that both of those were places that he was leading me to. And so in December, though, I just prayed, like, Lord, if full-time ministry would be something that you would have for me, would you make that clear? And a couple weeks later, I got a phone call from my now supervisor, and asking if I wanted to, join in on the nonprofit, on the ministry. And so here we are. So it kind of all just filtered together. I was kind of planning like, Lord, a few years down the road, if you want to like let me know, like that'd be great. But it happened a little sooner than I was expecting. But that's kind of what happened. So I was kind of thinking about switching routes of things, and just had to sit in prayer about it, and then felt that there was an open door and decided to walk through it.
That's so funny how like life is like you think like, oh, in like 2 years I will do this probably. Or in 3 years I might do it. But then like God has a different plan, or just like life definitely takes its course and COVID happens. Just kidding. But
seriously, big events that change course. Oh.
Yeah, no, and I think that's awesome though that you just are now where you're at now. But yeah, so I can speak to it, and I don't want to speak for you, because I bet your role is a little bit different than my role back then. But as the intern for this nonprofit, it's a non-traditional job, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you don't work your typical 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, right?
Right. Definitely just random, and weekends are included. Evenings kind of just feels like it kind of is nonstop, or almost kind of can become consuming, at least for me.
Yeah. And was that like hard to adjust to, like after college? Was it kind of normal because you were still coming out from the college schedule?
Yeah, great question. I think it was difficult. Since I had come from like a couple full-time jobs where it was, this typical structure of like a 9 to 5 or an 8 to 5 or whatever. It was different having to adjust to a different kind of schedule. It felt like there was more freedom, but then again, since there was so much freedom, it just felt like, oh, we can load it with whatever we want to do. And it was hard to know when to hit the stop button sometimes. But the flexibility was great. So there was highs and lows, and goods and bads to having a flexible, non-traditional job. But it can definitely, for someone who struggles with just loading things on and not being able to say no, I think it was hard.
Yeah. And you were you married then? I forget. When you started the job?
Yes. So we got married in November of 22, and I started working for the organization in like May of 2022. So like a few months, or 6 months. I don't know how many months that is. We were married for a few months before I joined staff.
And your husband works a traditional job, right?
He kind of also works in a non-traditional job, just for the hours wise. He is on a morning show and also does sports broadcasting and with communications. And so he has early morning shift. Sometimes there's afternoon things and a lot of evening games that he'll have to cover, as well as weekends. And so both of us are kind of in a spot of, just non-traditional, not the same structure. We're kind of missing each other sometimes with scheduling, and that can be really difficult.
Yeah. So can I ask, how do you guys like work through that? Do you manage it well? Do you feel like you've gotten a lot better since it's been a few months of working?
Yeah. I think it's definitely been a learning process, and one that we're still trying to navigate and figure out how is this going to work best. But I think since we both are kind of inclined to like dive into our work and be like fully immersed, that is like one thing that we had to navigate, of like, how do we not make work more important than our marriage? So that's been a constant struggle of, okay, we like first have to prioritize time with the Lord, then we're going to prioritize like our marriage, and then like what we're doing with our life. And so that, I think, has been something that we're constantly just trying to keep in check with one another. But yeah, I think one of the things that's been helpful for us is finding a weekly time that we can like check in with one another. And my husband doesn't like to call that a meeting because he kind of just checks out of meetings. So we call it a review of the previous week and a preview of the next week. So it's called the Devon Repre. But we try to have that once a week so that we can ask each other, like, how was the last week emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually? What are you looking forward to, or what are you nervous about heading into the next week? And kind of what does your schedule look like? So we kind of know ahead of time, when are we going to connect? When are we going to be able to see one another? How can we be intentional with the time that we have? For me, I really like quantity of time, but I also value quality of time. And so how can we make the time that we do have together very quality? And I think also just having people in our corner is so helpful. Like we can't manage marriage on our own and just grow and walk through those things. And so I think having people in our corner has been really helpful, on top of having a weekly check-in time. And I think another thing is just having honest communication, and rather than like thinking, oh, they probably don't need to know this, like, oh, it'll be fine. But I think just being so upfront with communication, we kind of came up with this acronym of HCU. Honesty cultivates our unity, but hiddenness crushes our unity. And so if we want to like remain connected and like cultivate this unity that we have in marriage, we have to be honest about what's going on in our life. And yeah, so that's been really helpful, I think, in navigating just schedules and things.
Yeah, no, I love how you say that you take intentional time to meet up like maybe once a day and to just say, how are you doing? Or how was your day? Just because I think when you're married, people don't realize this, but quality time is so important. And I think it's stereotyped that when you're married, you'll always be with them, you'll always get sick of them. But yeah, you spend a lot of quality time, quote unquote, even, but like you said, you have like two non-traditional jobs, but
Yeah.
I don't think people really take the time to like say, how are you doing emotionally, spiritually, and even physically too. Like, and when you're married, that's so important. So I really commend you for doing that, just because I know it just, even a non-traditional schedule, that's so hard.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely has come at the cost of just not doing that well, and just knowing what like we need to do something different. And so it's like, what can we do differently? Like kind of just scratching for survival and trying something new. So each season might look different, but for now it's been really helpful. Yeah, to have those check-ins.
Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong, but when I was on the internship, I had to do a lot of outreach and a lot of people skills, a lot of reaching out to students saying, hey, like, I want to get to know you. Hey, and it wasn't like you where I was like, oh, there's a friendly person that I kind of know of. It was like complete strangers that I would go up and be like, hey, like, my name is Mindy. I was wondering if you'd be interested in like getting coffee with me sometime and learn about like my ministry and join our nonprofit. Is that similarly to your role?
Yeah, that kind of is how it was set up. Like we're gonna go to a campus and ask students if they to get to know them relationally, like build relationships with students, but also ask them if they would want to be specifically like in a Bible study or something like that. And so so yeah, it kind of was very much, okay, we're putting ourselves out there, like we're just gonna initiate, and then we'll see what sticks. Kind of you throw the spaghetti needle at the wall and see if it sticks. But yeah, so a lot of just relational, intentional time with others, a lot of pouring out. Yeah, with that.
Yeah, and there's some vulnerability there too. I know. Like you're putting yourself out there, and like I said, making friends out of college was hard for me, but I can't imagine because I did that. I went out to strangers, but yeah, how has your experience been just like going up to like complete new people and be like, "Hi, my name's Teagan."
Right. Yes. I think part of me is terrified. Part of me is really excited. I think really believing in the mission of like, I want people to know who Jesus is. Like, I want to be able to connect with them. And that's, if that's my motivation and driving force and not like I want them to like me, then that's like really helpful for me when I'm engaging with people. But I constantly struggle with that of, I want them to see me, or I want them to see like what I'm doing, but rather, can I just invite them to get to know the one who, created us. And so I think that has helped me when I'm like initiating, engaging with people, but it doesn't always help the like the physical side of that. It is just exhausting sometimes to be constantly engaging all the time and like not being able to kind of turn that off. Because relationships are like kind of the best part, I would say, of getting to work in ministry and for this organization, but it also comes at the cost of that's just also exhausting, can be.
When did you start notice signs that you were feeling kind of burnt out?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And as I think about that, I think I was pretty numb to even notice signs by the time I got was pretty exhausted. But I think by this past summer is kind of when I probably started noticing that man, I'm really like there's no energy. I just cannot keep going. Like the pace that I'm running is just not sustainable. But I kind of ignored it. I was like, I'm denying that. Like it's gonna be fine. Like I'll just keep going and we'll figure it out. So by this fall came around, I made it until October when someone else had checked in with me and asked how I was doing. And I just said, I'm really not doing well. And they said, why don't we just kind of pause here? Because I was planning on thinking like reevaluating in December, of saying like, do I need to take a step back? Like, what do I need to do? But I think I was in denial for a long time of the signs that either I was like feeling but didn't know about it. But it was like mid-October when I officially, was like, I am not doing well, and there's a lot. I'm really, really heavy, and there's a lot weighing on me.
That's vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. Just because I think a lot of people can relate to that. I know I've related to that, especially like COVID when COVID was happening. Everyone was kind of at that point of like, stuff hit the fan. We really don't know what's keeping us going, but we keep on pressing on, and we just keep going and we keep going. But like sooner or later, we know this cannot sustain us. So the fact that you had the vulnerability and courage to say, "Hey, I need to tap out for a bit," is really, really encouraging and just really, again, commendable to your heart. On those lines, again, just ministry requires like emotional investment, physical investment, even a relational investment. What was the most encouraging and also the most hardest parts of it?
Yeah.
Because people don't see like the behind the scenes, especially like I was a part of my like a ministry myself in college, and even grew up in church, grew up in high school, and I saw a lot of people pouring into me and a lot of people taking time out of their day to really just say, "Hey, Mindy, like, how are you doing?" But like people don't really see the other side of it.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I think something that I've been learning, I've been kind of digging into Clifton's strengths and like what are my top 5 and all that kind of stuff. So fun, right? And and a couple of them are responsibility and empathy. And I think those can just operate for me, they operated in overdrive while I was like full time in ministry, because it was like, okay, I have these things that I'm responsible to, and I'm like I like can sense how other people feel, but I'm also walking through like hard things too emotionally. And so I think when both of those kind of like came together and were operating in overdrive, it was something that, kind of just this emotional, physical exhaustion. It was just hard. Like everything was just combined between like ministry and life, and just like work and life. I wasn't able to separate it. And so I think I didn't navigate it very well. I kind of just let them mesh, because I was told, okay, that's like, I mean, as a believer, everything is meshed together. Everything is like not separate. But it was really hard for me to notice them like meshing together until it became not too late, but until it was really heavy and burdensome.
Yeah. And then, but what was the highlight too?
Yeah, highlight. Yes, what's encouraging. That's so great. I think the encouraging part is getting to just experience like the depths of either hurt or highlights with people too. I think just getting to walk closely alongside others and to feel like heard and seen in that space as well. Even as like we're trying to like lead other people, I am learning just as much from them as I don't know if they're learning anything from me, but just like I get to learn from them too, and get to learn through the like process as well. So I think just getting to know people on deeper levels, I think is really encouraging to me.
Yeah, like I don't really even get to know that on my job. Like as a counselor, like I have to sit down and I get to know people, but we're talking more about the trauma related reasons on why they're here. But you get to do all the fun and all the lighthearted and all the deep parts too, which is really awesome. Because you really get to know people, which I think that's part of like the human condition, is that's a basic need. The Maslow's hierarchy is just to be known and loved, and that's what God calls us to do too. So just the mere fact that your job is a reflection of that is really cool.
I love that, Mindy. It reminds me of something that Kurt Thompson always says, where like we need to be seen, soothed, safe, and secure. Like those are our needs of just like, what does it look like to like engage in that with other people, that we would see people like experience safety with people.
Yeah. So kind of jumping back a few questions. I know you said that you had to take a step back in November. What does stepping back look like for you, or taking a break?
Yeah. yeah, for me, um, I think up until that point, I believed this lie. I didn't know it at the time, but I'm like unraveling it now that my value depended on everything that I was doing. Like I had
Mm.
to keep producing, I had to keep making sure, people were engaged and like we were making things happen. And I felt very alone in that. So I think what it looked like for me to step back was to completely remove myself from just all the responsibility that I was putting on myself. And yeah, I just was done with my campus responsibilities, I guess. So I wasn't continuing to meet with students. I wasn't continuing to lead Bible studies. I wasn't really on campus anymore. And so, um, yeah, I was basically just taking time to rest. And so a lot of that looked like additional counseling and like learning to just take some walks every day. And is there anything that fills you back up? Like what can we do to like
Yeah.
fill back up? So at the beginning, it was kind of this detox process of okay, we're gonna remove the things that were burdensome and just like reorient around because it was so disorienting. And now we're gonna like move to like how can we like walk on a path of renewal. And so, yeah, it was, yeah, taking a step back just meant I like actually just removed myself. They told me, yeah, that I was just going to remove myself from like everyday responsibilities. And um, so yeah, that was the initial process.
Yeah. So just the physical removal of saying, hey, I need a break and I need to put up like actual physical boundaries so I can
Mm,
restore myself back to baseline. And just to
mm,
even get my priorities back in line too at some points. Not that your priorities were bad by any means,
right.
but just
Mhm,
even just like having a new lens of how the world
mm,
is spinning even.
yes, exactly. Yeah, that's so good. Great way of saying that because it feels like everything was spinning 1,000 miles an hour in one direction that like yeah things just needed to be recalibrated almost like what's really going on inside me because I just felt so numb to anything and like
Mm.
anything that was coming in I just like was not hearing it or receiving it but I felt the need to keep going forward with whatever
Yeah.
was needed to be done I guess the work. Mhm.
Yeah, and that's like again, maybe sometimes people don't know what the common trigger or the common reason
Mm,
is. We just go through seasons when our brain's not acting the way it's supposed to, or even just
yes.
like our subconscious is doing stuff that we don't
Mhm.
understand. And that's when we need to take the humility to say, I just need to take a
Mhm.
step back. So again, I'm
Mhm.
proud of you. It takes true vulnerability and bravery to do that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hmm.
Thanks for naming.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you. You're currently now working, right? Like
Mhm.
you're back. Are you back, like doing your full time gig?
Not full time, but like
Okay.
part time. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Has that
Mhm.
been kind? Have you felt a difference coming back
Mhm.
part time even?
Yeah, I think there's just a greater awareness of like my tendencies to like load things on or my tendencies to not say no or just to take on too much responsibility internally. But yeah, I think it was something where like I just didn't even think any of it was enjoyable. And so now it's like now that I'm in a better regulated state of just kind of clearer and just yeah able to re-enter a little bit slowly. It's just we've yeah started integrating very slowly, and so a lot of it just looks like having fun conversations with students, not super deep conversations. And I think that's been really helpful for me to have a slow integration back to see like is ministry is like this still something that I want to continue doing or which I'm very grateful that they're allowing like this slow integration. It could very well be just okay we're just going to go right back to where we were but I think I was so afraid that I was just going to snap right back into um,
Mm-hmm.
the toil and um, the turmoil almost and so yeah just being able to take things slow and just experience yeah small bits of joy that's returning has been really encouraging.
Yeah, yeah, and even the fact that you say that you didn't like plunge back all in because that's actually really unhealthy.
Yes.
So the fact that you're taking it slow and taking it
Mm,
one step at a time and just taking it
mm,
day by day is
mm.
probably the more healthy approach than even if you did like I'm gonna do everything under the sun.
That's it.
Because
Right.
I think that's like our culture in America of like
Mm,
work, work, work until you burn out. You're kind of you
yeah.
get a gold star if you are burnt out. But the
Yeah.
fact that you are like, no, like I'm not gonna do that again. I'm gonna take my time and I'm going to reflect. And yeah, I'm going to have some wins, but ultimately I'm gonna do some self-care too.
Yeah, I think that's so true, Mindy, that it is like this prized possession that we would just produce, do more, do more, do more.
Yes.
And I think I'm learning as I've gone through this process, just like, man, I don't want that for other people. Like, even just for, me to endure, and even like the conversations we've had about like burnout, it's just making me want other people to experience wholeness and health when it comes to just how do we just live a life that doesn't have to be always going. It can be slow, it can be quiet, it can be there can still be productivity, but it doesn't have to look like, the quantity of numbers. It could be the quality of relationships too.
Yeah. Do you take a lot more like down personal time now? Like alone time?
Absolutely. Yes, it's glorious.
What do you like to do?
Yeah.
Do you like the color?
Yeah.
Do you like the nap?
I love a good nap, girl. I especially love like a nice slow morning. Like if I can get up and experience a slow morning, like that obviously involves going to bed at a decent time the night before, and I'm still working on my sleep schedule, but we're getting somewhere. But I do enjoy a slow morning where I can spend some time reading, drink a cup of coffee. I love going on walks. We have a dog now, and so it's been really fun. It's been helping me to like get out and go on walks, and especially now that the weather's nicer, I do enjoy a nice walk on my own. And I love podcasts. Like I love just listening to that and taking that in. But I think I've just noticed more that I do need time of reflection. Like I can't just keep going and inputting things into my brain. So as I'm taking time just for slowness and stillness, those are some things that I like to do. Or one of my friends, I've been trying to read more, and I feel like for like my job, but also just kind of the way I'm wired, I love to read like kind of the more, my friend calls it like a vegetable read, like something that's really stimulating and like healthy or whatever. But I've learned to just like enjoy a candy read, is what she calls it. Something that's not necessarily going to like, I mean, there's still limits that I put on that just to watch what I'm reading. But one of the like series that I really enjoyed over this care and break season was the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and it was just so fun. I've never been able to, I finished that book in like 2 days, and I've never been able to read that fast, and so it was just something where I know I'm like, that doesn't happen. Something where I was just like able to get kind of lost in a story, and I could just kind of enjoy like kind of just being thinking about something else that wasn't just overwhelming. It was enjoyable.
Yeah, I do that with YouTube. So that vegetable thing and the candy thing that you're talking about. So I'll be walking on the treadmill, doing YouTube, and I'll like look at like a TED Talk and like learn something new about myself, about like how to read faster, how to like think about things differently. If I want a piece of candy, I'll like watch The Bachelor, like the Bachelor, like Bachelor highlights, or like I don't know, Love Is Blind, just because I don't know why. Like I'm not like I would never go on reality TV probably, but the fact is, if it's so entertaining for me, I'm like, why am I doing this? But that's like my candy,
Love it. It's so good, so fun. I love it.
Yeah, and I think that's like a word to our listeners, is that that's really healthy to not just be binging candy, but also throw in some vegetables too.
Yeah, exactly. Either side, like we can be out of balance on like all the vegetable reads and no candy reads, or all the but having a balance of how can we kind of bring it to the middle ground.
Yeah. Are you more introverted or extroverted? I forgot.
Yes. When I took the test, I think a while back, I was like 51% introverted, 49% extroverted. So it's like very
right in the even.
Yes, right in the middle. So I think that makes it so hard to know, like, okay, do I need time alone right now? Do I need time with people? But yeah, it's a good balance of both. It's helpful for me, I think.
What's your top 5 Clemson strengths?
Yes. Yeah. Developer, belief, responsibility, empathy, and connectedness. What are yours?
Mine are woo.
I love it.
Communication, input. That's like my only strategic one. So I just input a lot of information. I like collect a lot of people. Like I like to input a lot of people. Activator. So I get some done.
So
And
good.
so I took it twice, once at the beginning of college and once at the end. So I don't remember like my fourth one, but I think my fourth one's includer. It's
Mm,
like
I see
something
that.
I know I have like 4 people ones and then 1 strategic one.
Yes, I love it.
I don't like I'm not an objective like if you are a 4 on the Enneagram, if you're a ESPJI on the
Yes.
Myers-Briggs, like that defines you. But I truly think
Mm,
that like these are just the relational things that you can like explore with people and get to know people too. They're kind of just like
mm,
benchmarks to help you ask questions to like really get to know someone instead of like
mm,
defining someone by them.
So good. Such a good, yeah, a good
Yeah.
explanation for that.
Yeah.
Good.
So now I'm going to ask you if you could go
Mhm,
back to
mm,
yourself at the beginning of taking this internship or job or
mhm.
working with a nonprofit, what would you tell yourself?
I think one of the things I would say is to not let my activity for God hurt like my intimacy with God or replace my intimacy with God. I think it can be so easy to just think about what are all the things I have to be doing for Him and not like actually meeting with Him and communing with Him. And so I think just because of the job that I stepped into, that would have been really beneficial for me to just constantly remind myself of. Yeah, the way it was structured was set up so differently. So just knowing that things are going to change and it's okay, and just being able to go with the flow a little bit more than I'm not really used to, kind of probably would have been helpful just to have this like some expectations set up a little better.
Yeah. Yeah. And what would you tell like whether it's a future student that you meet or just someone, a
Mm.
close friend, what would you tell them about burnout?
One of the things would be to be curious about kind of your exhaustion. Like, even if it's hard to identify it for yourself, do you have people in your corner that could identify spots of exhaustion for you? That could ask you the questions that are needed to be asked. But if you feel like you're still in the spot of, okay, I can identify kind of where I'm like how I'm burning out and in these symptoms, I'd maybe, yeah, say kind of be curious about your exhaustion. Am I physically exhausted, mentally exhausted, spiritually, emotionally? Kind of what areas are being like used up at the moment, and kind of, yeah, separating it into those things, even though everything is whole and holistic and included. It's sometimes helpful to identify each area maybe, and to also say like you're not stuck. If you need to stop, you have agency and autonomy to say like I need space or I need a break. That doesn't mean weakness. It's actually going to further like harm you if you like stay with where you're at if you're burning out. And so I think stopping when you hear your voice saying like I need to stop, trusting your voice, trusting the
Yeah.
inner parts of you, because it almost feels like the inner parts of you can't be accessed if we're like numb and burnt out. So it's like if that's screaming out, like just let it scream. And
Right.
yeah, and take a pause. Yeah, having people in your corner is like so helpful, because without like other people noticing things in me, or without me being able to ask others kind of what was going on, that was so helpful. So very twofold: having someone, but also being curious and not condemning about how I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved how you said to trust your own voice
Mm,
because here's the thing, people, the
mm,
only person that really knows how you feel is you.
mm,
And you're the only person that one could do something about it. And two, that you're the
mm,
only person that like has to, live every day with yourself. And so no one else can tell you, oh, you're not tired. You don't look that bad. Like, keep going. You have a little bit in you. But when you
mm,
don't, you don't. Like,
mm,
that's just facts. Like, no one knows what's really going inside you in your heart except you.
mm,
And
mm.
so Teagan's right. Listen to you. Listen to your little voice and like learn to trust yourself too. I think it's so easy to like second guess or to be skeptical because I think that's kind of what society tells us to do in some ways, or even like we even have that false narrative of like if I just push through, which I is applicable sometimes. Like maybe if you're running a marathon, like you can finish
Gotta
the
keep
race,
going.
yeah, but also there are limits just through your day to day
Mm,
life. So
mm.
all of it's
It's good.
amazing. Like me and my boyfriend always have the saying too that if your target is not hit, there's probably a reason for that too. So like what you were saying, if your physical target's not hit, if your emotional target, etc., there are ways that we can, get the arrow back to its bullseye and we can shoot.
That's
So,
good. Wow.
yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. I'm gonna pocket
Yeah.
that. I'm gonna take that one.
Props to
That's so
Nick.
good.
It wasn't me.
So good. Love it.
Yeah.
Mm.
I guess one of my final questions, Teagan, is what
Mhm.
brings you joy? Like through this
Mm.
entire season. I know you've had some challenges that we talked about, burnout, talking about even just exhaustion, but
Mm.
what brings you joy? What makes you
Mm.
wake up in the morning and keep going?
Yeah, that's such a good question. That was a question that was asked to me like probably constantly, even since I like started burning out. Like, just
Oh,
think about
good.
what brings you joy. Think about what brings you joy. Think about what brings you joy. And that, like, for a while there, I was like, this is just such an unfair question because the thing that's supposed to be bringing me the most joy, like time with the Lord or time with people, is not bringing me joy. And so I think like even for me to just recognize like, okay, if that like wasn't me bringing me joy in the moment, like Lord, would you restore that joy like that's found in you? Um, and however long that's going to take, like, would you just be the one to restore it? And so I think, yeah, just having time alone with God is like restoring, and also like just, yeah, communion with God. And that it doesn't have to look a certain way. I think just also accepting the fact that life or just like what we have going on is not going to be matching this like box that we have put together. So I think it's just joyful to experience the ebbs and flows that happen, and just recognizing that like these like it's still good. Like God is still good in the midst of it, and even if a circumstance doesn't seem that way, um, like we can still stand on a firm foundation if we're walking with Jesus. And I think finding that firm foundation again and that security, yeah, was super helpful. And that I think is where like my joy has to come from.
So good.
So much.
Just even like I was thinking about that the other day too, of
Mm.
like what like nothing in this world right now really can like it can bring you short term happiness, joy. Like, oh, even if I got like 5 extra followers on Instagram, like cool, it's a dopamine spike. Or even like, oh,
Yeah.
like the sun is out, it's shining, but tomorrow can look completely different. So we need to put our joy in something that's sustainable and lasts forever. So just the hope that you have on Jesus and just the hope that you have about just the purpose too. Again, just really amazing. Ah, Teagan, I love it.
It's so good. I know. Thanks, Mindy. That's so fun. Good.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I have some rapid fire questions for you to end
Oh
if
my
you're ready.
goodness. Okay, I hope so.
Sweet. Who's the last person that you called?
Oh my gosh. Probably my husband.
Classic.
Yes.
What kind of dog do you have?
He is a lab Australian Kelpie mix. So he looks like a black lab pretty much, but he's got whatever an Australian Kelpie is in him too.
What do you and your husband like to do for dates?
We usually like to go out to eat. Um, but now that it's nice outside, we'll probably start going on some golf dates here and there, which is really
You golf?
yeah.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Do you
So
prefer
fun.
real golfing or mini golfing?
Definitely a real golfing.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
If you're a real golfer, that's probably not even a comparison.
It is fun though. We have gone on. There is a mini golf course here in town, and so we have gone there a couple times.
Nice, nice. What's your favorite thing to cook?
I really liked. We've just been making chicken fajitas, probably like every few weeks, and those have been really fun because yeah, like I found a recipe that you can just throw the broiler on, and yeah, just the peppers, onions, chicken. It's great.
Sweet. And then
Yeah.
finally, are you a morning person or a night person?
I so badly want to be a morning person, Mindy. It's not even funny. But if I like needed to stay up to do something, I'd much rather do it in the evening than I would in the morning. But yeah, I'm probably more of a night owl than a morning person. But I
I'm
want
the
that to be
same way.
switched.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have more energy at night, but then in the morning, I accidentally wake up at like 7 to 8 a.m. and I'm like, why am I awake? I have no energy.
I need sleep.
Exactly.
So,
Well, Teagan, thank you so much for being a Mindy with the mic. I
yeah.
know that our listeners will definitely get so much insight and advice from you. So it's a pleasure for having you on too.
Thanks, Mindy. Thanks for having me here. This was such a joy and such a fun thing. I loved it.